Tom sat alone in the small cabin of his exploration ship. The stars stretched out before him, countless points of light in the black sea of space. He had been traveling for weeks with only the hum of the ship's engine and the quiet voice of the computer to keep him company. He had grown used to the silence, but sometimes he wondered if he would ever meet another living being out here. So far from home, the journey was supposed to be routine. Tom had signed up as an explorer for the Earth's Alliance, charting systems no one had visited before. It was dangerous work, but it promised adventure, and Tom had always wanted to see what was beyond the maps. He liked solving problems with his own hands, and space always gave him enough of them. That day, his routine changed. The ship's sensors picked up a faint distress signal coming from the far edge of the system. At first, Tom thought it was interference, but the signal repeated, weak but steady. The computer displayed the translation. It was not human. The language patterns were strange, unlike anything he had studied before. Tom leaned closer to the screen. "This is a distress call," he said quietly. His chest tightened with both fear and excitement. He had dreamed of encountering alien life, and now it might be real. The computer gave a warning. Unknown origin. High risk. Recommend avoidance. Tom ignored the warning. He guided his ship toward the source. The closer he came, the stronger the signal grew, until finally the ship's cameras picked up an image. A large vessel floated in silence. It was sleek and curved, unlike any human design. Parts of its hull were broken, smoke and fire spilling into space. Tom whispered to himself, "That's no cargo ship." Caution filled his mind. He could leave now, and no one would know. But another part of him, the part that had brought him into space, told him he could not turn away from someone in need. He activated the docking systems and guided his ship toward the broken vessel. As he got closer, he saw escape pods already launched, drifting empty in space. But one life sign still flickered inside the wreck. Just one. Tom pulled on his suit and prepared to board. He moved through the docking tunnel, his boots clanging against the metal. The alien ship's interior was dark, lit only by small fires and sparks. Strange markings covered the walls, symbols glowing faintly as if alive. The life sign drew him forward. He reached a chamber where broken wires hung like vines. In the middle of the floor lay a figure. She was tall, her skin a faint silver tone, her hair flowing like strands of light. Her clothes, though torn, carried an elegant design. Even injured, she held an air of dignity. Tom knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were a deep shade of blue, almost shining. She looked at him with both surprise and suspicion. Her voice was soft, yet commanding. "A human?" Tom blinked. "You know who I am?" She struggled to sit up, her voice carrying both pain and pride. "We know of your kind. I did not expect one of you to come here."
Act.
Tom quickly checked her wounds. She had a cut across her arm and signs of internal injury. His training told him she needed medical care fast. "You're hurt. My ship has a med bay. I can help you." Her expression hardened. "I do not need the help of a human."
Tom sighed.
Even injured, she was proud. "Look, you may not like me, but if you stay here, you will not survive. Your ship is breaking apart." She tried to rise on her own, but her legs gave way. Tom caught her before she fell. She looked away as if ashamed. "Fine, do as you wish, but I do not trust you." Tom carried her carefully through the corridors and back into his ship. The computer scanned her vitals and confirmed she was in bad condition, but stable enough for treatment. As the machine began its work, Tom stood nearby, watching her. After some time, she turned her head toward him. "Why did you help me?" Tom shrugged. "Because you needed it. Simple as that." She studied him, her eyes sharp. "You do not know who I am, do you?" Tom shook his head. "No, should I?" She hesitated, then answered. "I am Alira, daughter of the High Ruler of the Valen Empire. My people control many systems. My enemies would do anything to capture me."
Allah.
Tom's eyes widened. "So you're a princess." Her tone grew cold. "Do not call me that. Titles do not matter here. What matters is survival." Dom gave a small nod. All right. Then for now, we focus on keeping you alive. Lyra looked away, her pride still strong. She did not want to depend on him, but she could not deny the truth. Without him, she would still be lying in the wreckage. Hours passed as Tom worked on repairing parts of his ship. The damage from docking with her vessel had strained his systems. He patched cables, adjusted the power core, and rerouted circuits. All the while, he kept glancing at her, making sure she was safe. At one point, Alira spoke again. Your ship is small, but you work with skill. You use your hands, your tools, and somehow you make things function. My people rely on advanced systems that repair themselves. We would never work as you do. Tom smiled faintly. Sometimes simple methods work best. She did not answer, but he noticed she was watching him more closely. Later, as Tom sat by the control panel, he thought about what had just happened. A human explorer and an alien princess. He wondered what fate had brought them together. He had no idea of the danger that was already on its way, or how much both of them would need each other to survive. But in that moment, as the stars drifted outside and the hum of the ship filled the silence, the story of trust and struggle between two very different beings had just begun. Tom sat at the control panel, watching the stars drift slowly across the screen. His ship moved on a steady course, but he could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He was no longer traveling alone. In the med bay behind him lay Princess Alira, heir to an empire he had never even heard of before today. She had fallen asleep after the computer finished its medical work, but even in rest she looked uneasy. Her hands twitched from time to time as though she fought battles in her dreams. Tom knew nothing about her world, but he could see she carried burdens heavier than her wounds. When Alira woke, she found Tom sitting nearby adjusting a panel with a small tool. His hands were steady, his expression calm. She spoke in a soft but sharp tone. Human, why do you remain here? Should you not set course back to your own people? Tom glanced at her. If I return now, you will not survive the trip. You still need rest. Besides, your enemies might be looking for you. It would be wrong to leave you unprotected. Alira pushed herself up, though her body protested with pain. I do not wish to depend on you. My people will come for me soon. I will not owe a human my life. Tom sighed. He could hear the pride in her voice, but he ignored her sharp words. I am not asking for thanks. I just do what is right. You do not have to like it. Oh. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. She turned away, gazing at the stars through the small window. In her heart, she wanted to rise above her weakness. But her body reminded her of reality. The hours passed quietly until the computer gave a warning tone. Unidentified objects detected. Distance closing. Tom's focus sharpened. Show me. The screen lit up with images of small machines moving through space. They were scavenger drones, the kind that fed on wreckage and ships left behind after battles. Their metallic bodies shone with cold light, and they swarmed like insects. Tom tightened his grip on the controls. If they find us, they will tear this ship apart for parts. Alira stood, though her balance was weak. We must move quickly. Do not let them board us. Tom guided the ship into a slow turn, keeping distance between the scavengers and his fragile hull. His hands danced across the controls as he powered the thrusters and adjusted the course. The drones followed, scanning, hungry for resources. Alira gripped the side of the chair. She watched as Tom's brow furrowed, his mind working faster than she expected. He spoke without looking at her. These drones track heat. If I cut power to most systems and release a decoy flare, maybe they will follow it instead of us. She blinked in surprise. You plan with such speed. Even with little technology, you make strategies as if trained for war.
Tom.
Tom gave a short laugh. Not war. Just survival. Out here, you learn to think fast. He pressed a series of switches, and the ship went dark. A single flare shot out into space, glowing bright. The drones swarmed toward it, chasing the heat. Tom reignited the engines only at the lowest power, guiding the ship silently away. Minutes stretched into long silence. Finally, the computer spoke. Threat moving out of range. Tom exhaled with relief. That was close. Alira studied him with new eyes. She had doubted him, but she could not deny what she saw. His instincts had saved them both. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I was taught. Tom gave her a small smile. We manage. That is what humans do best. The ship continued its quiet journey. Tom returned to repairing damaged circuits while Alira observed. She finally broke her silence. In my empire, no one of my rank would ever touch such work. Repairs are done by machines or servants. Yet you work with your own hands, and somehow it feels stronger. Tom wiped grease from his fingers. Sometimes strength comes from doing things yourself. You learn the limits, and you learn what is possible. Her pride made her hold back words of agreement. But her eyes betrayed a hint of respect. Later, when Tom checked the charts, he noticed their position. They were not far from the border of the Valen Empire. But before relief could reach him, the computer signaled another warning. Large vessel approaching at high speed. Lyra's face turned pale. This is no rescue. These are enemies. They must have tracked my signal.
Ow.
Tom felt his stomach tighten. Who are they? They are from the Targoth Dominion, Alira answered, her voice low. They have long sought to end my family's rule. If they capture me, they will use me as a tool against my people. Tom stared at the screen. The approaching ship was larger, stronger, and armed. His small craft had no chance in a direct fight. Alira looked at him with sharp eyes. You must release me. I will face them myself. If you fight, you will die. There is no need for you to be destroyed for my sake. Tom shook his head firmly. Not an option. I am not giving you up to them. Her voice grew hard. You do not understand. You are a human, alone in this galaxy. They will crush you. Tom met her gaze, unflinching. Maybe, but I will not hand you over. If I can think fast enough, maybe we stand a chance. For the first time, Alira felt something she had never felt before, a foreign certainty mixed with hope. She had always believed humans were weak and unimportant. But this human refused to bow, even before a far stronger foe. As the enemy ship drew closer, Tom began working on a desperate plan. He adjusted the engines, recalibrated the shields, and prepared every trick his small vessel could offer. He spoke calmly, though his heart raced. If I can lure them into the asteroid field nearby, their larger ship may have trouble moving. That could give us a chance to escape. Alira listened silently. She wanted to object, but she also knew he might be right. For the first time, she stepped closer to him. If you do this, I will help. I know their tactics. I can guide you where they are weak. Tom gave a short nod. Then let's survive together. The ship trembled as the enemy's weapons locked on. The chase had begun, and for the first time, Alira realized she was no longer simply a princess waiting for rescue. She was standing beside a human who fought with courage and cleverness. And something inside her heart shifted. The struggle between pride and need had only begun. But already she knew one truth without this human. Her story might already have ended. The enemy ship loomed larger on the scanner. Its hull was dark and jagged, built for intimidation and strength. Tom tightened his grip on the controls, guiding his small vessel toward the asteroid field that stretched like a maze ahead. The plan was dangerous, but there was no other choice. Alira stood behind him, her hand gripping the side rail for balance. Her eyes focused on the screen where the Targoth warship advanced with relentless speed. Her voice was calm, but Tom could hear the weight behind it. They will not stop. If they capture me, they will use me to break my empire. You must understand what is at stake. Tom glanced at her. I don't need to know the politics. What I know is that if I let them take you, it's the end of everything we've fought for already. Alira looked at him, surprised by the firmness in his words. She had lived among commanders and advisors who spoke carefully, but this human spoke straight. Without fear of rank or consequence, the asteroid field grew closer. Huge rocks tumbling through space, colliding and breaking apart. It was a deadly place for any ship, but Tom saw it as their only chance. He pushed the engines harder, slipping between two massive stones just as the enemy ship fired. Energy beams cut across the void, narrowly missing his craft. The ship shook, warning lights flashing. Alira steadied herself, watching as Tom moved the controls with quick precision. His eyes never left the screen, his mind always working. "They will not follow closely," Alira said. "Their ship is large. It cannot weave as you do. But they will send fighters." Almost as if her words had called them, smaller vessels detached from the Targoth warship. Sleek and sharp, they darted into the asteroid field. Tom muttered under his breath. Of course, he adjusted the ship's shields and weapons. The vessel was not designed for battle, but it had a few defensive systems. He armed the pulse cannons, knowing they would not hold out for long. Alira moved to the second chair beside him. She tapped into the tactical display, quickly overriding the computer's systems. Tom shot her a glance. "You know how to use that?" She gave him a cold smile. "I am trained. My people expected me to command fleets one day. Do not underestimate me." Together they worked in tense silence. Tom focused on flying through the shifting rocks, while Alira tracked the incoming fighters. She called out sharp instructions. 3 incoming on the left. Turn starboard now. Fire at the second." Tom followed her lead, his pulse cannon firing at the small craft. One exploded in a flash of light, debris scattering. The other 2 pulled back, waiting for an opening. The chase grew more dangerous as the asteroids crashed against one another. Tom threaded his way through narrow gaps, using his instincts more than the sensors. Alira, though reluctant, began to see his skill clearly. Few pilots she knew could have flown with such courage in this field, but the enemy was not giving up. More fighters slipped into the maze, circling like predators. Tom clenched his jaw. "If we keep this up, they'll pin us down." Lyra's eyes moved across the screen, studying the rocks. "There is a cluster ahead. If we detonate part of it, the debris might block their path." Tom nodded quickly. "Good thinking. But we'll have to time it right." He steered the ship toward the cluster while Alira adjusted the targeting system. She set the cannons to strike the weak points in the rock. The moment they fired, the asteroid shattered, sending massive chunks spinning across the field. The fighters behind them scattered, 2 of them colliding with the debris and bursting into flame. Tom grinned, despite the danger. "Nice shot." Alira gave a small nod, though her pride kept her from smiling back. Still, something inside her shifted. Working with him did not feel like weakness. It felt like survival. For a while they managed to stay ahead, but the larger warship still hung at the edge of the field. It launched long-range blasts that shook the rocks around them. Each shockwave made navigation harder. Alira frowned. "We cannot run forever. Their ship is stronger and our power is limited." Tom agreed silently. He knew their fuel reserves were dropping. The repairs he had made earlier had not fully restored the engines. He needed a new idea. He thought for a moment, his mind racing. Then he spoke. "If we get close enough to the larger ship, maybe we can trick them. If I overload the engines and release the energy core, it might create a false signature. They'll think we've been destroyed." Lyra's eyes widened. "That is reckless." Tom smiled faintly. "Sometimes reckless is all you've got." She studied him, torn between frustration and admiration. Her whole life she had been taught that humans were simple, fragile beings. Yet here was one who treated danger as just another problem to solve. The plan began. Tom guided the ship in a sudden burst toward the edge of the asteroid field, drawing the attention of the enemy warship. Energy blasts followed, shaking their vessel. Alira stabilized the shields, her fingers flying across the controls. "Now," Tom said. He pulled power from the core and prepared the release. The ship groaned under the strain, lights flickering. At the last second, he ejected a portion of the energy drive, sending it spinning into the void. Moments later, the drive exploded in a blinding flash. The scanners lit up with false readings, showing a massive energy spike. To the enemy, it looked as though the human ship had been torn apart. The warship paused, scanning the wreckage. Then slowly it pulled back, turning its attention elsewhere inside the darkened cabin. Tom sat back in his chair, breathing hard. Did it work? Alira checked the sensors. Relief touched her voice. Yes. They believe we are gone. For now, we are safe. Tom gave a tired laugh. Good, because I don't think the ship can take another stunt like that. Silence settled between them for a moment. Alira finally spoke, her tone softer than before. You risked everything for me, even when I told you not to. Why? Tom met her eyes, his voice steady. Because it was the right thing to do. That's enough reason for me. Alira looked at him with a new kind of respect. She had resisted him, doubted him, and tried to keep her distance. Yet every time he proved her wrong. She had no choice but to admit to herself what she had denied. This human was the only reason she was still alive. The ship drifted quietly through the asteroid field, its systems weak but holding. Outside, the stars burned cold and endless. Inside, two unlikely allies sat side by side, bound together by danger, survival. And something both of them were only beginning to understand. The struggle was far from over. The Targoth Dominion would not give up so easily. Alira knew they would return stronger than before. But now, she also knew something else: humans had a strength no empire could measure. And Tom had shown her that strength in every choice he made. The next stage of their journey was only beginning. The silence in the ship stretched on after the false explosion that had driven the enemy warship away. Tom leaned back in his chair, the dim lights casting shadows across his tired face. Every muscle in his body ached from the long chase through the asteroid field. The small vessel felt as if it might fall apart at any moment. Alira sat across from him, her expression calm but her thoughts restless. She studied the man who had risked everything for her. She could not understand why he would do so when he had no obligation, no promise of reward. His kind were not bound to her empire, and yet he had placed himself in danger for her sake. Tom broke the silence. We bought time, but they will come back. The Targoth Dominion doesn't give up. They will send more ships once they realize the truth. Alira nodded slowly. Yes, they do not forgive failure, and they do not forget prey. We must prepare. Tom gave a tired smile. Prepare with what? Half my systems are failing, and I had to eject part of the energy core. We're alive, but this ship is hanging on by threads. Alira looked at the damaged panels, wires exposed and sparking faintly. And yet you keep it alive with your hands. Your people must survive not with strength of weapons, but with the strength of will.
Oh.
Tom shrugged. Sometimes willpower is all we have, but it's enough. Alira was silent for a moment, her pride warring with the truth she now saw. She had grown up believing humans were weak, yet this one showed her a kind of strength she had never known. Tom stood and began working on the systems again. He replaced burnt cables, tightened bolts, and adjusted circuits. His fingers were stained with grease, but he kept moving with determination. Alira, watching him, finally asked, "Do you never rest?" Tom gave a faint laugh. Rest later. Survive now. Hours passed as they worked. Alira, though untrained in repairs, offered her help. At first, Tom hesitated, but when she insisted, he handed her tools and explained simple tasks. She followed his instructions carefully, her elegant hands clumsy with unfamiliar work, but she did not give up. As they repaired the ship together, Tom felt the barrier between them softening. She was no longer just a proud princess looking down on him. She was someone standing beside him, sharing the struggle. Later, when the ship's systems were stable enough for travel, Tom set a course away from the asteroid field. Alira sat quietly, staring out at the stars. She finally spoke. You risked everything for me, but I still do not understand why. You could have left me in the wreckage. No one would have judged you. Maybe no one would know, but I would know. I couldn't leave someone behind. That's not who I am. Her eyes softened. In my world, power decides who survives. Mercy is rare. Perhaps your kind carries a strength we do not value. Their conversation ended when the computer gave a warning. Long-range scan detects incoming vessel. Identity uncertain. Tom cursed under his breath. They found us already. Alira stood, her body tense. Then we must fight. We cannot keep running forever. The new vessel came into view on the screen. It was smaller than the warship, but faster. A hunter ship built for capture. It closed distance quickly. Tom adjusted the controls. We'll have to outthink them again. The hunter ship fired, and the human vessel shook. Tom rolled the ship through space, dodging blasts, but the enemy was skilled. Alira took the tactical screen again. They are pushing us toward open space. They want to drive us away from cover. Tom frowned. Then let's give them something unexpected. He veered sharply into a nearby cluster of icy comets. The hunter followed, weaving through the frozen giants. Tom used the reflective surfaces of the ice to confuse their sensors, firing short bursts that bounced off and created false readings. Alira watched in awe. You fight with tricks and shadows. No commander of my people would think this way. Tom smiled grimly. Sometimes shadows win the day. The chase continued until Tom guided the ship behind a massive comet. He cut the engines, letting momentum carry them silently. The hunter ship passed by, its sensors blinded by false reflections. Alira whispered, "They lost us."
Oh.
Tom nodded. For now. They sat in silence again, the tension easing only slightly. Tom leaned back, exhaustion finally showing. Alira studied him with quiet eyes. She wanted to speak gratitude, but her pride still held her back. Instead, she asked, "Why do you fight so hard for someone you barely know?" Tom met her gaze, his voice steady. "Because it's the right thing. I don't need another reason." Her heart stirred at his words. She had lived her whole life surrounded by duty, by expectations, by politics. No one had ever done something simply because it was right. That night could be measured in the endless dark of space. Alira could not sleep. She sat in the med bay, watching the stars through the small window. She thought about her people, about her enemies, and about the human who sat in the cockpit, keeping watch even as exhaustion weighed on him. For the first time, she admitted to herself that she needed him. She had struggled against the thought, but it was truth. Without him, she would already be lost. The next cycle, Tom discovered new trouble. The fuel reserves were almost gone. The ship could not make it far without a new source of energy. He explained the problem to Alira. She thought carefully, then said, "There is a mining station not far from here. It is neutral ground, not under my empire or the Dominion. If we reach it, we can repair and refuel." What? Tom nodded. "Then that's our goal. But it won't be easy. The Dominion might guess our path." They set course, moving slowly to conserve power. Along the way, Tom taught Alira more about the ship's systems. She listened with focus, learning things she had never been taught. When she made mistakes, he corrected her gently, and she accepted his guidance with less resistance each time. As they traveled, a bond grew, fragile but real. Alira began to see him not as a simple human, but as a partner in survival. Days later, they finally saw the mining station in the distance. Relief filled them both. But as they approached, alarms blared. The Dominion had arrived first. A blockade of ships circled the station, waiting. Tom's heart sank. They knew. They're always one step ahead. Lyra placed her hand on his arm, her touch light but firm. "Then we must be 2 steps ahead. Together." Her words carried strength, not pride. For the first time, she did not stand apart from him. She stood with him. Tom looked at her, then back at the blockade. His mind raced, searching for a plan. He knew the battle ahead would test them both more than anything before. The struggle was far from over. But now, it was no longer just his fight or hers. It was their fight. And together, they might just have a chance. The blockade around the mining station shimmered in the cold light of distant stars. Tom's ship drifted silently at the edge of the station's orbit, engines humming low. He checked the sensors again. Several Targoth ships formed a tight perimeter. Any attempt to enter would trigger a deadly response. Alira stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. She had grown calmer since their journey together had begun, but now the tension returned. "They have prepared well," she said. A direct approach will not succeed. We must find another way. Tom nodded, scanning the gaps in the blockade. There is a narrow path near the outer asteroid ring. It's risky, but if we time it right, we can slip through. Alira stepped closer to the control panel, her eyes on the display. I know their patrol patterns. They change rhythm every 5 minutes. If we move in sync, we can avoid detection. Tom smiled faintly. You're full of surprises, Princess? I'll follow your lead. Together they calculated the timing. They would have one chance to enter the station safely. Any mistake could mean destruction. Tom adjusted the ship's engines, keeping them silent while Alira coordinated the navigation. Every second felt stretched, every movement critical. Finally, the gap appeared. Tom held his breath as he maneuvered the ship into the narrow path. Alira's voice was calm, precise. Left by 2 degrees, now up. Steady. Steady. The Targoth patrols moved as expected, and the human ship slipped past undetected. Relief filled the cockpit, but they could not celebrate yet. They still had to reach the station's docking bay. Once inside, the station welcomed them with automatic systems. The docking clamps held the ship securely, and lights brightened the dark interior. Tom and Alira moved quickly to the engineering section. Alira guided him to a storage of energy cells. These will restore your engines. We can also repair the hull with these materials. Tom worked fast, swapping damaged circuits and refueling the engine core. Alira assisted, handing tools, adjusting calibrations, and sometimes pointing out details he had overlooked. For the first time, they worked as equals. Hours passed, and the repairs were complete. Tom tested the systems. We're ready to move again, Alira nodded. Good. The Dominion may not give up, but at least we can face them with strength. Before they could leave, the station's sensors warned of incoming ships. The Targoth fleet had detected their presence and sent a strike force. Tom knew there was no chance of running this time. Alira studied the approaching vessels. We cannot fight them head-on. They outgun us. But we can use the station's layout to our advantage. Tom raised an eyebrow. How? Alira smiled faintly. We will guide them into the narrow corridors and debris fields surrounding the station. They cannot maneuver easily. If we move fast, we can disable their ships one by one. They entered the station's corridors in small spacecraft, using the docking bays and tunnels as cover. Tom's hands flew over the controls while Alira directed him. The first Targoth ship followed, firing blindly. Tom twisted the ship around corners, dodging energy blasts. Alira called out instructions, guiding him toward narrow tunnels where the enemy could not fit. One by one, the Targoth ships tried to follow. Some crashed into debris. Others were trapped in dead ends, and Tom used small charges to disable them. Alira watched with calm efficiency, showing him weaknesses in the enemy tactics. Hours of maneuvering passed, each turn a test of skill and nerve. The final enemy vessel loomed ahead, the most dangerous yet. Tom's heart pounded as he calculated the odds. Alira leaned forward. We can lure it into the repair bay. Its weapons will overheat in the confined space. Then we can strike. Tom's hands were steady. Then let's finish this. They led the vessel into the repair bay. The enemy fired blindly, its energy beams reflecting off walls, causing sparks and minor damage. Tom hit a series of switches, activating the bay's defensive systems. Energy nets and magnetic fields trapped the vessel. Alira directed him to fire the ship's final pulse cannons. The blasts disabled the Targoth vessel completely. The threat was neutralized. They sat in the cockpit, breathing heavily, looking at the aftermath. Alira's expression was one of relief and quiet pride. We did it, she said softly. Tom gave a tired smile. We survived. Together. Alira looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. I struggled against needing you, but without you, I would have been lost. You were the only one who could have saved me. Tom's eyes met hers. And you taught me that survival is not just about strength or technology. It's about working together and trusting someone else. I am glad we did this together. Alira's gaze softened. For the first time, she let go of her pride and allowed herself to acknowledge her dependence on him. She realized that needing someone did not make her weak, it made her human, in a way she had never understood before. The next day, the station repaired their vessel further, and Alira contacted her empire. Her people promised a fleet to escort them safely. As the stars stretched endlessly outside, she stood beside Tom in the cockpit. "You have my gratitude, human," she said. "Not because you saved me, but because you showed me a strength I did not know existed in your kind." Tom gave a faint laugh. "And you showed me that even in the stars, courage and determination matter more than titles and power." The fleet arrived, and Alira prepared to return to her people. She paused, looking at Tom. "Your actions will not be forgotten. You have changed the way my empire sees humanity." Tom nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "Just remember, strength is not just in armies or weapons. It is in the choices we make and the courage to act when it matters most." Alira smiled, a real, gentle smile, unlike the proud expressions she usually wore. "I will remember. And I will tell my people of the human who saved a princess and survived against impossible odds." As the fleet carried them through space, Tom felt a quiet satisfaction. Humanity had shown its true strength not in power, but in heart and ingenuity. And Alira, once proud and distant, had learned that sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to rely on another. The journey that had begun with desperation and danger ended with understanding and respect. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but Tom and Alira had proven that humans could stand among the stars, not because of their technology, but because of the courage within them. Together, they had survived. Together, they had changed the course of lives and empires. And together, they had shown that even the proudest princess might find her greatest strength in the one she once struggled to trust.